determination. He gathered a group of like-minded individuals plotting to assassinate not only the president but also Vice President Andrew Johnson and Secretary of State William Seward. Their conspiracy aimed to decapitate the Union's leadership.
As day faded into night, the atmosphere in Washington remained festive. The city was alive with celebrations, unaware of the impending tragedy. Lincoln, accompanied by his wife Mary Todd Lincoln, decided to attend a performance of Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater. It was a rare moment of leisure for the weary president. It was meant to be a night of relaxation and enjoyment, a brief respite from the weight of leadership. The theater was filled with laughter and applause. But for Lincoln, it would be his final night. The joy and relief of the evening would soon be overshadowed by an act of violence that would change the course of history.
Lincoln's legacy: steering a nation through tumult. Abraham Lincoln's presidency had been anything but ordinary. His time in office was marked by unprecedented challenges and monumental decisions that would shape the future of the United States. He had assumed office in 1861, on the eve of the Civil War, facing a nation teetering on the brink of collapse. The country was deeply divided, and the very fabric of the Union was at risk of unraveling. 7 southern states had already seceded, and the threat of a wider conflict loomed large. The secession of these states was a direct challenge to the authority of the federal government and the unity of the nation. Lincoln, a man of unwavering conviction and profound empathy, refused to let the Union perish. He understood the gravity of the situation and the immense responsibility that rested on his shoulders. He viewed secession as illegal and vowed to preserve the nation his predecessors had fought so hard to build. Lincoln's resolve was clear: the Union must be preserved at all costs. With unwavering determination, he led the Union through 4 years of bloody conflict, holding firm to the belief that a house divided against itself cannot stand. The Civil War was a test of the nation's endurance and Lincoln's leadership. His Emancipation Proclamation, issued in 1863, became a turning point in the war. This bold move not only aimed to weaken the Confederacy but also to redefine the moral purpose of the war. By declaring the freedom of slaves in Confederate territories, Lincoln redefined the war's purpose. The fight was no longer solely about preserving the Union, it was now a battle for human rights and the abolition of slavery. It was no longer just about preserving the Union, but about upholding the fundamental principles of equality and human dignity. The Emancipation Proclamation galvanized the Union cause and gave new meaning to the sacrifices being made on the battlefield. As the war drew to a close, Lincoln turned his attention towards reconciliation and reconstruction. He knew that healing the nation would require more than just military victory. It would demand compassion, understanding, and a commitment to rebuilding. He envisioned a reunited nation, healed from the wounds of war and committed to the principles of liberty and justice for all. Lincoln's vision for America was one of unity and progress, where the scars of conflict could be transformed into a foundation for a stronger future. His second inaugural address, delivered just weeks before his assassination, eloquently expressed his vision: with malice toward none, with charity for all. These words encapsulated Lincoln's hope for a nation that could move beyond its divisions and embrace a future of peace and equality. Seeds of hate, the making of an assassin. John Wilkes Booth, a renowned actor, was a staunch supporter of the Confederacy. Born into a family of actors, Booth enjoyed a comfortable upbringing and achieved considerable fame on the stage. He was known for his charisma, good looks, and passionate performances. Beneath the veneer of charm and success, however, lurked a darker side. Booth was arrogant, impulsive, and deeply affected by the South's impending defeat.
He saw Lincoln as a tyrant, a dictator who had trampled on the rights of Southern states. Booth's hatred for Lincoln intensified with each Union victory. He began to entertain fantasies of rescuing the Confederacy from the jaws of defeat.
He initially considered kidnapping Lincoln and holding him hostage in exchange for the release of Confederate prisoners of war. As the war neared its end, Booth's plans grew more desperate and sinister. The fall of Richmond, the Confederate capital, extinguished any remaining hope he had for a Southern victory. Consumed by rage and despair, he resolved to assassinate Lincoln, believing it to be a righteous act of vengeance. On stage, the actors delivered their lines with impeccable comedic timing, eliciting hearty laughter from the crowd. The play was a light-hearted farce, a perfect escape from the tensions of the time. The audience, engrossed in the performance, was completely unaware of the impending tragedy that would soon unfold. Sic Semper Tyrannis, terror at Ford's Theater. The atmosphere inside Ford's Theater was electric. The audience, a mix of dignitaries, soldiers, and ordinary citizens, were in high spirits. The theater was a place where people from all walks of life could come together to enjoy a night of entertainment, temporarily forgetting the ongoing Civil War.
When the laughter from the audience reached its peak, masking any sound, Booth threw open the door and stepped inside. The timing was perfect. The noise from the play provided the cover he needed to make his move without drawing attention. John Wilkes Booth, armed with a Derringer pistol and a knife, stealthily made his way to the entrance of the box. Peeking through the small peephole, Booth waited for the opportune moment. He had meticulously planned this act, believing it would change the course of history and avenge the South. In the presidential box, Abraham Lincoln sat beside his wife Mary, enjoying a rare moment of respite. He was unaware of the danger lurking just outside his door. The president, who had led the nation through its darkest times, was finally taking a moment to relax and enjoy the evening.
Raising his pistol, he aimed for the back of Lincoln's head and pulled the trigger. The sharp crack of the gunshot pierced through the air, silencing the laughter and sending shockwaves through the theater. Lincoln slumped forward in his chair, mortally wounded. The joyous atmosphere turned to one of horror and disbelief as the reality of the situation set in.
Booth, shouting "Sic Semper Tyrannis," thus always to tyrants, leaped from the box onto the stage, breaking his leg in the process. Despite his injury, he managed to escape through the back of the theater, leaving chaos and panic in his wake. The audience, initially stunned, quickly descended into pandemonium as they realized the gravity of what had just occurred.
A nation in shock, the unthinkable becomes reality. Confusion reigned in the aftermath of the gunshot. Panic-stricken screams filled the air as the audience struggled to comprehend what had just transpired.
Mary Todd Lincoln, witnessing the horror unfold before her eyes, let out a piercing wail that echoed through the stunned silence. Doctors in the audience rushed to the presidential box, but it was immediately apparent that Lincoln's wound was grave. He was carried across the street to the Peterson House, where a team of physicians worked frantically throughout the night to save him.
News of the assassination spread like wildfire, plunging the nation into mourning. People gathered in the streets, their faces etched with disbelief and grief. The joyous celebrations of just hours earlier transformed into scenes of collective heartbreak.
The assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the man who had guided the nation through its darkest hour, seemed unfathomable. He had come to embody the hopes and dreams of a reunited nation, and his sudden, violent death left an immense void in the hearts of Americans. A nation mourns from Washington to the west. The nation plunged into a period of profound mourning. Flags flew at half-mast, businesses closed their doors, and church bells tolled mournfully across the land.
Lincoln's body, after lying in state at the White House, embarked on a long funeral train journey back to Springfield, Illinois. Millions of Americans lined the railroad tracks, their faces etched with grief, to pay their final respects as the funeral train passed through towns and cities. The outpouring of sorrow was immense, reflecting the profound impact Lincoln had had on the nation's psyche.
Lincoln's assassination transcended political divisions. North and South alike mourned the loss of a leader who had embodied the ideals of unity, compassion, and reconciliation. His death served as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the enduring legacy of hatred and violence.